So welcome to Sharing Hope. And the gentleman who's with me right now is one of my favorite people, and he always leaves me hopeful. Our guest is Australian-born Paul Mabury, writer, producer, entrepreneur. You may know him for his writing and producing work with Hillsong and Bethel Music and All Sons and Daughters and Lauren Daigle. But Paul is also one of Nashville's premier drummers. And with his friend Dustin, recently built a company around samples of his masterful percussion. And Paul has a keen insight on life and music, and it's a privilege to have him with us. I'm your host, Jamie George. Welcome again. Paul, thanks for hanging, brother.
I'm very glad to be here. Very, very glad.
So we were jumping on and talking about how you and I were sitting at your house not long ago, and we were sitting in a restaurant. We had this conversation, had versions of this twice, I think. And you were saying, I think the church is probably going to make some shifts in the future. and you used the phrase, maybe they're even going to bunker down. It's going to be smaller groups.
Yeah. I had no idea it was going to be manifest like this, but at the end of the day, sometimes in your, in the God part of you, that still quiet place, whether you call it spirit, your soul, a combination of both, you kind of sometimes get a little niggling that something's coming. And I didn't realize it would be this. And I think in general, we are headed to more of that kind of biblical style of church where it's lots of small gatherings and friendships and accountability with people you actually know and trust. I think we're learning a lot as the church and as people in faith in general. With every generation that goes by, the ideal thing I think is that we grow and that we learn from the things that we're getting wrong, and we take with us the things that we're getting right. And that's tricky sometimes. That's the idea, right?
I agree. That's the idea.
Yeah. And so I think that what's coming of this virus and the quarantine that we're all going through isn't all negative. There's some positive things happening,
Have you experienced any of that with you and Maggie, with the kids? Is there anything? I know for you there was already kind of a shift in your intent, in some of your perspective, but in the kind of the full lockdown, have you experienced anything you weren't anticipating?
Well, I'm a little bit of a hermit crab anyway. I'm sitting here in my studio and we built somewhat of a bunker up here on the hill. So I kind of tend to like to get off with people that I'm close with and trust, and kind of avoid large gatherings anyway. I think that's why I ended up playing drums, because I took the biggest object I could possibly find and put myself behind it.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I feel like one of the real beautiful things that has come of this time is kind of in many ways being forced to quiet ourselves down and spend a little more time with each other, on a daily basis, and have more conversation. And I still think that for all of us, it's still a choice, but we have made that choice to, turn the TV off, not watch quite as many movies, and also just less activity for the kids. I think that's caused us as a family to kind of fast track some things and communicate more than we normally would in any given day. You know?
Has there been a lot of basketball at the hoop?
Yeah, there has. In fact, I'm nursing an injury right now because
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, on day one, I overdid it with the boys, and they all ball and they're getting bigger, and I'm shrinking and hurting a lot more these days. So yeah, but apart from that, it's been super fun, and it warmed up for a while there. We have a pool here. I've been in the pool every day. It's a little colder now, but it's been a really we've made the most of it. We're definitely drinking lemonade here. We had a pile of lemons dish, but we're drinking lemonade, that's for sure.
So I'm asking folks, so many of us are dealing with uncertainty. There are all these questions. Almost, everyone at one level is asking financial questions.
Yes.
We're all dealing with a certain level of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go back to a time in your story where you experienced uncertainty? Kind of, you didn't know what was going to happen, where things were going, and what was challenging about that? And maybe what that experience was like? How did you come through it, and what did you learn through it? Some other time in your story where you went through something like this?
Yeah, well, not thinking too hard about it. Knee-jerk reaction, if you will.
Yeah.
First time of uncertainty was school.
Mm.
School was horrible for me. I mean, I had friends, but
And where was school? What city?
school was in Perth, Western Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Perth, and then I moved to Sydney in my 20s, and then kind of lived between Auckland and Sydney, and then moved to Nashville from Sydney. But growing up in Perth is school, and it was back in the day where kids with attention deficit disorder, and by the way, I don't know why they call that a disorder. I think it's an advantage, but people with that condition, and then OCD, throwing a little healthy dose of OCD tendencies too, and school was a nightmare, So anytime said, "Hey, sit down and focus on this," I was like, "Well, I'll show you," It's gonna happen. So I kind of had my doubts about this whole life thing, at a very early age, and kind of questioned whether I was, where I belonged.
Wow,
I didn't question whether I was smart or whether I was talented or anything, because I knew I had a good grasp of music from a very early age. I started playing piano when I was 5. I'd sing harmonies along, and I'd learn things by ear. My brother would learn it. My twin brother would learn it on the piano by reading, and then I would listen to him play it and then go and play it. So I kind of figured I figured music might be my thing. And then I also love to draw. For a lot of kids, toys was the whole thing. For me, it was, a 2B pencil and a pad, and I was happy, So I kind of very early on in life started really realizing that I have to survive school, and if I can get to the other side, it'll all be okay.
But that feeling of school would be the same as kind of like, because school was a template, like, here's how everyone's meant to function all the time in this way. Was that the case for life in general? Like every time you got shoved into a template, were you going, I'm going to have to learn how to function and survive in this scenario?
I think that's a good question. I actually believe that at a very early age, I was a questioner. Like I analyzed everything, and I thought a lot about it. I kind of was a little confused as to why more of the kids around me weren't asking similar questions. But I started thinking, what does this institution, if you will, produce? And I think the education system's, obviously growing and getting better, and I'm so grateful for it, especially having 3 boys of my own who are well and truly in that, season of their lives. I place a great value on education. But for me, I started realizing the way school was back then is, generally speaking, it produced good followers, good people who were just told what to do and did it well. And it generally made the children who are questioning and naturally inquisitive and wanted to spend more time and take a slower pace at it and really dive in, that they kind of got left behind and left a lot of classrooms feeling like they just weren't getting it. You know? So all that to say, like, I realized if I could, work hard at the things that I was passionate about, that I could survive school no matter what they said about me, and then just continue working at the things that really mattered to me. And for that for me was music, and art in general. But it really took me until the age of 20 to trust that in me. You know, I felt
like there was almost like this intuition, God was leading you internally, but there was a battle between, do I actually trust that or don't I?
Yes, it was like, you know, I think one of the things that happens, one of the most often questions I'm asked the most is, how do I do what you do? You know, and the answer is always incredibly frustrating, I imagine, because you can't make it happen, man. You just got to put one foot in front of the other. And I work in a very performance-based industry. And I think you just got to endeavor to be like a river, and that is freely flowing. You never ever want you and your ideas to become like a swamp. That's where things stagnate and it's unhealthy. And so to be a river, I think you have to allow your ideas to keep coming. And when you're around others, bring them freely. Don't think, well, I won't share this because then they might take advantage of me. And what if I get taken advantage of anyway? And, you know, what if I can't?
And that's going to happen, right? I mean,
it is. It's the natural thing to do. And especially with, you know, in a world and a system of lawyers and law cases and that, it's like, I'd encourage all of us to not participate in doing things like that and to be free and to honor each other's ideas. I mean, I was just talking to one of my sons today about the value of intellectual property and how we should honor that in each other and really kind of do our best to live with integrity and not copy and steal. And in general, to really, when we're thinking creatively, to not look to our left and to our right and question what we have, but just be yourself and bring your best effort looking forward in your lane.
That thought right there, Paul, people who are quarantined maybe have had a little bit more time than normally than they normally would have. And maybe somebody goes, you know, I haven't played an instrument in years, or I haven't pulled out that pad and the number 2 pencil, and maybe there's this kind of itch, like maybe I should try something creatively again, or maybe they're in a financial place and going, I kind of need to start working on a side hustle because I don't know if my main thing's going to work.
Yeah.
What would you say to those folks who need to access that creative place, but that wall of fear or the insecurity that says you're not good enough, or it's already been done? I think that comes up a lot for people creatively.
It definitely does.
What am I going to do that somebody hasn't already done? I mean, you know, Paul's an amazing drummer. He's already produced all this stuff. There's plenty of producers, drummers out there. Why would I ever even try anything?
Yeah.
What do you say to folks about that creative space?
Yeah, well, what I would encourage people to do at this time is don't conform. Like, don't follow the patterns of the masses with information and with your actions. You know, if you're going to dive into what's going on with this virus, then make sure the information you get is sound, and make your decisions based on love and faith and hope, and don't make any decision based on fear. So in saying that, as we are in quarantine, we have this incredible opportunity to maybe start something new, as you said, or to go for it in an area where you had your doubts. It's like, well, you know, what I would say is, you know, if you look at one of the greatest stories ever told, the David and Goliath story, is you have a young boy who was effectively quarantined with sheep.
That's beautiful. Totally.
He became king, right?
Yes.
So my question to everyone out there is, when did he become great? Was it when he was when he became king? Or was it when he was that boy protecting the sheep? When did he become great as a warrior? Was it once he was knighted, or was it once when he was King David, or was it when he was young boy David, killing a bear, killing a lion? Did Goliath ever have a chance? That's the story I believe to be true. David killed very big and very fast and very strong animals that would rip Goliath apart. And so I think that, as the story's told, I think how it pertains to us right now is that I believe these are our opportunities, like David sitting on a hill looking after sheep on his own, where no one could, sing his praises. And how did David become a great musician? Was it when he got a record deal, or when he played for the king and all the important people and everyone went, wow, look what the Creator's doing through your hands? My challenge is saying right now that he was becoming a great musician on his own, quarantined with the sheep, playing, killing time while he's waiting for a bear or a lion to come along, And so,
he's waiting to work on his warrior skills.
That's right. And his nunchuck skills. But at the end of the day, I'm saying, like, for me, that I take a lot of kind of encouragement from that story right now, because it is a lot of opportunity to get better in private, and for relationships even. There's a lot of opportunity now there's enforced time to deal with our relationships and to the ones that are the closest to us, the ones that we're allowed to stay with right now, like our husbands, our wives, our children. This is an incredibly important time and a great opportunity for us to work on things. Like, for instance, if you have trouble dealing with your emotions, like identifying them, how do I feel? This is like an incredible time to sit with your wife, or for you if you're a wife, to sit with your husband and like say, okay, over the next week or two or whatever this is going to be, months, I want to get better at trying to get how I feel out,
By the way, how's that going?
I'm just plugging my computer in, so
I'm wondering,
it's going all right, man. It's going all right.
Is Maggie going to watch this later on and be like, I'm really glad Paul mentioned that?
No, she's the one in our relationship that kind of struggles with that stuff.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Like she's the one that says, why don't you shut up about your feelings?
So I'll encourage her to watch and go, I was talking to this great guy and he just had a really good suggestion for this time.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you say to the folks who are not with people who are alone? And because when you gave that picture of David and the sheep, that's just a great line. What about the folks? I mean, you and I are fortunate, right? We got a wife or kids. What do you say to somebody who's alone, especially in that creative act? Because the act of creativity is often a very lonely experience. Any advice for those folks?
Well, I think the introvert like me, who creates, like, I spend a lot of my time on my own in this room. I made a lot of records in this room, and it's when I get on my own that I start to get a rhythm, pun intended, and I start to find those unreached places and start to get inspired. And it's like it's momentum. My challenge right now is having my kids around, my wife around all the time, is to try and find that momentum. So I've literally been working from about 11:30 midnight to 4 a.m.
Oh, wow. That's your alone time.
Yeah, because I was saying to Maggie last night, I got to turn this around. I got to stop doing this. But the reason why it's happening is I need to get that speed up. I need time to kind of get into that groove. So what I would say would be most challenging right now is not guys like me, because I'm super busy. I have a lot to do. It's like everyone wants to make music now, and I have more than I can get done at this time. And the challenging thing for me is I have so many people around right now. I got 3 boys and a wife. I have them around all the time. So my life's kind of radically different. The people that I am really feeling for right now are the extroverts who are on their own. In a room on their own.
Yes.
And all they want to do is be with people. And I think that obviously technology, like what you and I are doing right now, is helping.
Is there in the creative process though, even for the extrovert,
Yeah.
is there, you were talking about going into your feelings. Loneliness is certainly a feeling, right?
Hmm.
Uh, is there a way to channel that feeling of loneliness into a creative expression? Like, is that actually, do people, it seems like I know a number of different artists and musicians who, again, maybe naturally introverted, but they actually have to feel into that loneliness at times. And
Yeah.
sometimes really beautiful things come out of it, but you got to lean in. You actually have to kind of feel through it. And some of my extroverted friends who I agree right now are really struggling, I've had some of those conversations,
Yeah.
are like, they're just, they don't want to feel anything. They don't like feeling stuff. They kind of want to
Right.
medicate and stay distracted. Is there anything you'd say to
Yeah.
them, like, hey, there is a benefit to feeling this thing in your loneliness because something could come out of it?
Well, I mean, what you described then, to me, is the true pandemic in the world. That is the truth. That, we're living too loud. Like you got the volume up too much, and the silence is deafening. And I think that we don't know where this all leads. We don't know where this life, this culture, where
Yeah,
we don't know where we are in 40 years time. We don't.
right.
And it actually concerns me deeply. I think that art is expressed best when it's created in oppressive areas,
Mm,
in oppressive places.
mm.
Because if you look historically where the best music's come from and where the best painters, it wasn't sitting on the beach in the Bahamas with a beverage. It's come from people who were in hard times.
Mm.
Um, and it's also come from people who was personally in hard times, whether it was socially enforced or geographically enforced. It was coming from people who were tormented,
Mm.
um, and the Bible isn't free of those stories either. The Bible is full of people like that God used, that were wounded, and who were dealing with oppression, dealing with like conflict,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
uh,
yeah.
both physical and spiritual,
So there's a certain embracing of that tension that could, if we let it, do something within us.
bring the most amazing results that can help other people to heal and help other people to feel like they're not alone, to help other people to feel like they're not isolated,
Mm,
ironically.
mm.
I feel like we're more connected as people right now in this quarantine than we have ever been in my lifetime. Because,
Wow.
because uh, the famous athlete or the famous actress or these people who live lives not like you or me, or live lives like these different people, we had all these different kind of experiences, everyone's happening, and there's this feeling of, well, you wouldn't understand how I feel.
Hmm.
Now, to a certain level, we're
Wow, you're
all the
right.
same.
Yes. It's a
We're all
complete
stuck.
shared experience globally.
I just saw on ESPN that there's some NBA players who don't have a basketball hoop. They actually have not been able to shoot a ball this whole time.
Wow.
And it's like, so you've got a guy who's been paid millions of dollars, right? And admittedly, most of those guys are all like first, rookies and young guys in the game, or guys who are spending most of their time kind of heating up the bench. But at the end of the day, they get paid to shoot, and
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
getting to shoot because they don't have a hoop. Well, I got a hoop right here. I'd be like, dude, I got a great basketball set up out here. I wish I could just text him and say, we'll stay inside, come over and shoot, if I was in the same city as those guys, I would sure as anything would. But I think that
In the
ultimately
whole globe, we are all sharing the
we're
same
so
thing.
connected right now. We're so
Yes.
incredibly connected. Like I think that it was one of the more um, unexpected Easters of all time, I imagine, in the modern
Oh
world.
man, think
But
about that.
I also think that there would have been so many incredible experiences that families had yesterday, because
Yes.
the father told the Easter story
Mm,
and not the pastor.
yeah.
And these kids heard the story from their mom's mouth, or from their big brother's mouth, or
And we thought about other people. We sat and watched the Andrea Bocelli did a
Mhm.
thing. I don't know if you saw that, from the Duomo in Milan. And the boys, my sons are musicians, and we we had an event there a couple of years ago. So I was like, oh boy, Andrea's singing at the cathedral we were at. So
Mhm.
we watched it, and here we are. We found ourselves. There was an opening line as Bocelli was talking about why he was doing it, and it was something like, for a wounded nation,
Right.
Here's a gift of song.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about Italy, and suddenly,
Amazing.
instead of Easter being like, we're thinking about Jesus and grateful for our salvation or grateful for community in our church, it got real wide, real fast.
We're all in this together, man.
Yes.
Crazy. And I never even really, I think as people, we want to feel like, I've got all these amazing thoughts. But I actually, most of the stuff I haven't really considered before talking to you in this conversation, So, I mean, I'm feeling it, but
Yes.
I haven't said a lot of this stuff out, because I'm experiencing it.
Yes.
I'm not, this is me now talking with you and sharing with you what's going on here at the Maybury house. But it's like, for me, I just feel really connected to everyone right now. It's kind of a weird thing to say.
No,
I
know what
miss
you mean.
restaurants. I miss hanging out. I miss going and hanging out with you. But that's going to happen again. And we're going to get back to it. But I really feel like, what's the saying? There's opportunity in chaos where there's chaos, and I for one am doing my best to take it. And I'm one of the fortunate ones. I really, like you said, I have a wife who I love, but I also like her. I have children who I love, but I also like them. And I actually think that 2 out of 3 of my boys right now are they're going through some really important things. And so I think that it coinciding with this season is
Dad actually being around.
It's a gift, Intimacy is a gift, and it's so hard to get now. There's a loss of sensuality and celebrating sensuality. It's like I think this is a time to sit and break bread together and cook if you haven't cooked before, and really taste the food and think about what flavors go well with this and that, and take time.
Which is, you're right, it's so central. Like all the senses are suddenly involved.
Yeah.
My wife, Angie, told me yesterday, she was like, okay, so I need you to peel some potatoes. And so she comes over to me, and I was watching the Bocelli thing too. So she goes, how many potatoes have you peeled? I'm like, like, what? I'm like, I'm on my second one. She's like, okay, you're gonna just have to give them to me.
Yeah, speed this
up. I'm like, what? I've never been in the military. I haven't pulled KP. It's not like I spent hours peeling.
I'm enjoying this.
Right. She's like, no, dinner's gonna be ready. Just give me the knife.
Yeah, I know. I think I love chili peppers. Like I eat at least 3 or 4 different kinds of chili peppers every day, and so I cut them up. I have this little ritual, and like Maggie's had enough of watching me cut chili peppers. I swear. I got home. I got out from I said, see, look, I got home. I actually went from the driveway back inside, and I get in there, and there's all the chili peppers. They're all cut up for me. She's looking at me like, I don't want to watch you cut those things anymore. But no, I think what's going on for us is that we have these opportunities to have these intimate engagements. It's not like we didn't have that before, but we have more opportunities every day. And I'll tell you something that I think is really funny. For us, I'm busy. Like, don't like, I hate that word, but I have a lot in my inbox right now for music to do. But when I've taken more opportunity to be with my family, and you hit up other people and they're in the same boat, I would say, it's gonna maybe tomorrow you'll get the drums or whatever. It's like, everything's been so crazy, I think it's this, and they go, oh yeah, no worries, man, no worries. It's so crazy right now. I think there's this unspoken thing, like, let's just keep the crazy word, or oh man, with the pandemic and all, as an excuse to kind of like, just take the foot off the gas a little bit.
I think you're right. We're all like, I actually do have a lot to do, but with the pandemic and stuff,
I mean, with the quarantine, and I think about the guy on the other end. He's like, dude, that means you have more time to get this done. Like, don't think like that. Don't think like that.
Right.
No, what I'm actually saying is the kids are around all the time. My wife's around. It's just there's these natural interruptions that are actually gifts. They're gifts. They're not inconveniences. And I, like you and I have talked about this in the past, but last night my wife was frustrated. I could tell she was frustrated. We've been locked up all day, like after weeks, and it was a gray day and it was stormy all day, rained the whole day. We didn't get to go outside, you know. And by the end of the evening, she was getting ready to kill me, I guess. In saying that, I actually started to kind of force myself to not be offended or to get agitated, but to just to take joy in that, like to take joy in the fact that she's giving me her worst self, and I'm the only person in the world really that she does that with.
Yeah.
And that is her way of saying, I trust you. I trust you with this frustration.
Yeah.
And I trust you as I'm getting better at it. Like what she's saying is, or what she's hoping is, I trust you to help me land well.
Paul.
To catch me well, to not like allow me to hurt myself as I land, because you know, as she's kind of free falling in this frustration, just to stick with the metaphor, like my job as a husband is to kind of catch her well. If she's jumping around in a room, my job as a husband is to put her in a bouncy castle and not have concrete walls, you know.
And vice versa, right? Because we're all going to have we're going to all have these seasons where it just you need to let the pressure off.
Well, no, and let me clarify. I'm like that all the time. It's just Maggie does it every now and then, and it's like, oh my gosh, Maggie's losing it, you know? It's like, because she never does. She's so consistent. She has to deal with me every day, and that's like, let alone 3 other boys. So for us, this is like more and more opportunity to be together. And I think for the artist, or for the people who want to be creative and try something different, or write a poem, you know, or start a journal. Yeah. This is like the most ideal time to do it. And I think that, you know, wrapping back around to where we're talking about David and, you know, fighting Goliath. It's like that guy developed, from just thinking off the top of my head, he developed like everything that we know about that led to his greatest and most famous victories. They all happened on his own, like in quarantine, you know? So, you know, that's something for me that I can like go, well, if David did it, I can do it. You know, like that guy was, you think about how many people he had to spend time around later in life.
Wow, that's true.
How many opinions he had to deal with.
Yes. Actually, there's a journal. In Psalms, I remember reading, there was a kind of a journal page in Psalms for the moment when he's in the cave. Yeah. And he's kind of building his Robin Hood, like, you know, his Prince of Thieves moment, you know, and there's this journal entry like, God, why did you send me these guys? They're crazy.
I know.
They're nuts.
Yeah. And, I mean, if I was ever going to be like, had anything to do with the David movie, I would make sure that there was a line in the movie where he was looking at the army and going, I prefer the sheep over you guys.
Totally.
Give me the sheep.
You guys are crazy. Yes, totally.
Because I mean, that guy had it. All of his life was like, just like all of his development life. I mean, was in a like a lot of silence, a lot of quiet, a lot of, you know, from what I know, like his life was looking after things that didn't talk back. You know, like
they're all probably looking at him like, hey, dude, you got some social awareness issues. So you've only been hanging out with sheep for the last.
They're like, hey, David, put the loot down. Put the loot down, man. We've had enough. Dude.
We've had enough.
But like that, it's saying that if you're in a bedroom on your own now and you can pick up a guitar and you haven't done it in years, just go ahead.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. By the time we get out of this thing, you might be, you know, like a virtuoso. You know?
Okay, so we got to close, but I want to ask you this. If folks were like, hey, I'd love to hear Paul's stuff, a little more of his story, where would they find the drum samples in particular? I know those have taken off like crazy. Anything you're working on, you can tell us about.
Yeah, well, I've teamed up with Splice. Splice is a very big, wonderful company. Dustin and I have teamed up with them with that sound. So all of our stuff is you
can find it through Splice now?
Yeah, but it's gone through Splice, and we're really excited to be partnering with those guys. They're wonderful people. They're out of New York.
And is there like a website for Splice? Is there a?
Yeah, if you just like look up Splice, it's right there. Splice, it's right there.
Okay,
cool. Splice. But you know, for me personally, making records, I'm still doing lots of work, and you know, I think I have a saying that's kind of served me well, and it's like, if it kind of sums up years and years of doing something, and it's too old to suck. Like if you got a beard like this, then you're either unemployed in the music industry, or you must be doing something right. Right? It's like, so I'm at a point now where I'm still getting to make music, and I'm super grateful for that. And you could follow that, or most things music that I'm doing on Instagram. Just my name, Instagram, okay. Paul Mabury, and that's Mabury on Instagram. And it's not really a personal feed for me. Like, I try to keep that. There's enough people on that where I just try to. It's about me.
At least we can stay updated, kind of what you're up to.
Yeah, it's about me encouraging people musically. It's really not even about promoting me. Okay. I tell you this real quick. I caught 2 buses when I was a kid to go downtown, to go to the music store, to stand in there and watch VHS videos of my heroes, my drum heroes. And I would
that's where you had to go in order to watch them?
I had to go there. I had to
take 2 buses to get there.
2 buses to get into town to watch these videos. And one day I was sitting right at the very beginning of Instagram, and I thought to myself, I thought about that 15, 16-year-old boy. And I thought, what would I do for him, And that is, I'd post as many videos and encourage that kid as much as possible, because what I think my boys and other kids on the whole don't appreciate is how hard it was for us to get somewhere. But how perfect that was, because we don't appreciate what comes easy.
Yeah,
we only really truly appreciate things that cost us, And as I was on the bus driving in, I couldn't afford a Walkman or anything. I couldn't listen to music, so I was going in there humming and imagining and meditating on how amazing this was going to be. And I remember how the shop smelt and the drums smelt, the brand new drums. And then looking at the video at these people that maybe one day I could get to do it. And I remember driving to the Grammys, the presentation a year or so ago, and I was sitting with Maggie and one of our friends, Adri, and I just got really contemplative and just was looking at Hollywood go by the window and thought, I can see right now a 7-year-old boy on his tummy looking at the record player and the needle go over the grooves, and think, if I work really hard and believe in myself and believe that it can be possible and never give up, maybe one day I'll get to do this whole music making thing. And maybe I'll get to make a song or be a part of a song that can go and help people, and that other people would enjoy it. And so all these things, like that kind of thought of, where does a song go? Well, they're there to help people. They're to help people to express, to communicate. That for me is why I do what I do. It takes me to people, and it allows me to express myself and to say things that are sometimes too hard to say in conversation. So in most conversations. But yeah, so this is an incredible time, man. And I don't know if it'll ever happen again. It definitely won't happen like this again, because we're going to get educated through it. But I am, on the whole, my prayers go out to everyone affected by this illness, and I would, if it was up to me, we would everything would be fantastic, and we'd be all back to hanging out. And I do feel like that day is going to be euphoria. I think all these things that we found annoying all of a sudden are going to be like, this is incredible. I'm in a room full of people in a cafe waiting in line for my coffee. We're like, yeah, this is,
I heard a story the other day that somebody posted, I wish I could go back to work so I could complain about working so much.
No, I'm honestly, like I said to you a little earlier, it's like, I generally, most of the time, hate crowds. Like, I hate them. And now I would love to be in the middle of a crowd. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for the time, my friend.
But yeah, I just want to say to everyone out there, keep your chin up and stay encouraged. This this is a hard time, but for those who have been affected by the illness and those who are just, waiting to see what happens like me, then just I encourage you to take this time and be very deliberate with it. Don't get stuck on Fortnite or these games or whatever, or Netflix for hours and hours and hours at a time. Do all that, but like take time to really dig inside and to dare to be silent enough to start to hear some really helpful things within yourself,
Beautiful. We'll end on that. Thank you, my friend. Great to
Right
see
on.
you.